Boom, we are pre-recorded and good morning, Bear family. We are actually in San Jose today. We've been doing a little bit of work, and look, I got a laptop back. Exciting stuff, exciting news. We're going to be taking a look at the interest rate yield curve. The reason why we want to pay attention to the traditional and legacy markets is because this is the only reason we have a value acquisition system to begin with. I've mentioned this a few times that the dollar is backed by nothing other than the confidence of the people. And for the most part, this is actually relatively true. Although I did want to lean into the idea that all the different networks and systems of people communicating and collaborating and businesses that are built in all these markets over the last year actually provide us with a fair amount of value of understanding in each of these economies. But when they start to do things like cut the interest rates, it actually starts to hurt the banks. So this is pro for Bitcoin, right? Bad for banks, good for Bitcoin. Bad for people, good for Bitcoin. Again, this brings me back to the argument in my mind that Bitcoin's already fallen out of the hands of the few, or out of the hands of the many and into the hands of the few, but we could already consider the financial elite one of the downsides to a growing ecosystem, and also why I think this is extremely important to understand the necessity of multiple currencies as well as crypto chains and communities around the world that are building and working with this technology. One of the reasons why I think it's so important and so valuable to understand this as well is because as they start to go through this rate cut cycle, it's just a fascinating experience to watch these banks slowly start to crumble. Now, one of the other really interesting things is that everyone likes to pretend that Donald Trump knows exactly what he's doing. Oh, he's working with all these cool Q agents and da-da-da-da-da. I don't like to think in such lofty terms. We have no evidence that any of this is for the better. As a matter of fact, look, let's give Trump some credit for some of the crazy shit he has done. He did meet Kim Jong-un. I don't know if it's a good thing to meet a dictator necessarily, but it's something they had not yet done. I will also divulge fully that I'm not American, so I have no vested interest in what the hell that country does. I'm just an innocent bystander and onlooker at everything that's taking place. The other really ridiculous thing is that Donald Trump decided to come out and try to slam Google, saying that they're going to be investigated for treason. His direct quote, it says, "Billionaire tech investor Peter Thiel believes." I wish I had a Donald Trump voiced. Billionaire tech investor Peter. No, it's not going to do it. Believes that they should be invested for treason. He accuses Google of working with the Chinese government. And he quotes this from Fox and Friends, a great and brilliant guy who knows the subject better than anyone. First off, Donald Trump, Fox and Friends doesn't know jack shit better than anyone. You're fucking high. See, I even let a swear word slip out. When the Donald is starting to do something like this, the credibility really starts to slide. He's out against Bitcoin now. He claims that he's the reason for the bull market in the stocks. Now, the declining interest is actually the reason why the stocks are going up. It's because you don't need to be a genius to be able to build a business that's successful without having to pay any interest on the loans that you take out to start that company. It's ridiculous. It's not just free money, it's more than free money. So the Donald is making a fool of himself quite frequently. Again, people we could argue, again, it's not to say that he's not a fairly intelligent individual. You don't get to any of these places without being fairly intelligent and somewhat conscientious. So it's not against him, really. It's just so against the idea that any centralized form of politics and governments is a failure point. And this is what the blockchain and Bitcoin ecosystem is supposed to solve. This also leads me to the next part of the conjecture of the video that I wrote and freestyled about yesterday, which is Bitcoin going to $50,000. It seems that everyone that's invested in this space and going to continue to invest in this space is smart enough to already understand the problems. If they're decreasing interest rates, and he says he wants to ramp up money printing just the way the Chinese government does, what we're going to see is the likely incurrence of a continued bull market. This is something we've been saying for the last 2.5 years. If the Federal Reserve decides to cut rates and or print money again, it could actually keep this can kicked down the road a little bit further than we had ever anticipated. Again, this is what I think the likelihood of Bitcoin rising up to 50,000 and then crashing back down to 9 or 10,000 to test the 200 EMA on the weekly. Again, the reason why I think this is so important to understand is because not just a conjecture, but as a type of premonition for the future so that we can understand what might be taking place here. Again, if all the smart money knows that cutting interest rates and printing money is a bad thing, yet the Donald doesn't seem to understand that, then smart money is going to be moving into the crypto space, which is going to pump it up to the top. But over the next year or two, if they continue to print money, lower interest rates, we're going to see a massive amount of cash flow flood into this ecosystem and this world again. And if you're not making money in this day and age in 2019, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know what you're doing with the internet. So a big part of the question becomes, what happens next? A lot of us have been waiting for an economic recession and a crash to take place over the last few years, and it has not come. It has not come like the Christmas we thought it would, bringing Bitcoin all the way to $1 million. But what if it's a slower process? And this is actually what I think. If we were to have a crash a year or two down the road from now, and it were to be a rather abrupt moment, it would actually likely drag the prices of Bitcoin down as well. If we lose the general market sentiment, Bitcoin has no sentiment. It would take time for it to climb back up as a real valued asset. So this has become clear in my mind that I think this is what is going to happen. I think that we're going to see a very sharp and fast run up and a continuation of what is going to be the end of this fourth wave, somewhere between 8,700 and 7,700, and massive explosions of the fifth wave, and multiple smaller sequences of Elliott waves inside of that fifth wave, up to somewhere between 38 and 55,000. I forget, the charts aren't open right now. So if that happens, I think we're going to likely see the recession come somewhere around 2022. Again, this is all conjecture. We could ramp up and Bitcoin could run to $100,000 now, and we could have massive inflation, but the con game seems to be still working. Most of the people seem to still think that you can have a paper money that's backed by nothing that is good as gold, and it's not. None of it is. So a lot of conjecture on the table. I wanted to leave it off with that. I came to get my computer fixed, and they told me it was going to cost $1,300, to the point where I tweeted Tim Cook. It was like, Tim Cook, get your shit together. You're ruining the reputation of Mac, because apparently these are all the hard drives, and this is a warning for anyone too who wants to buy Mac. All the hard drives, all the RAM, CPU, it's all soldered. If one of the parts breaks, you have to replace the entire logic board. So when the hard drive broke on my computer, and they're like, oh, we got to replace everything, and it'll cost $1,400. I was like, since when? I didn't get a warning sign with my computer. So I lipped off Tim Cook, because what the fuck do you think you're doing? Why would you do that? That's so bad for the brand. What do you mean I can't replace a hard drive? Anyways, long story short, I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that I mouthed off Tim Cook on Twitter. But when I went to pick this thing up the other day, they handed it to me, and I said, great, how much is it going to cost after tax? They said, don't worry about it. It's on the house. I was like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, we refurbished everything. We replaced the battery. They replaced the keyboard, the speakers, the touchpad. They pretty much gave me a brand new computer aside from the case, and said, yeah, sorry, we were able to put it under warranty. And my warranty had expired months ago. So they did some fandangling. So I'm very, very grateful for the people at Dr. Mac in Costa Rica. If you happen to be in Costa Rica and you need your Mac fixed, go to Dr. Mac. This is not a sponsored ad, but goddamn, when they give me a free computer back, I gotta say thank you. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tia with the Arcane Bear. Please remember, do your own due diligence. None of this is research or investment advice, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Ooh.